Morning, folks. Hope you had a good day yesterday. Just been listening to the news. Most important bit of news this morning. America's threatening to bomb Syria back into the Stone Age. Apparently, so I've just been listening to some chimp from the US State Department talking about how Assad created ISIS. I'm not sure about that. I think it was Saudi Arabia financed by the CIA. About how Assad is preparing weapons, chemical weapons, to attack his own people, like he did in April. When it's now been proven that it was ISIS that prepared and used those weapons in April. So it looks like the deep state in the US, the neocons, the National Conservatives or National Socialists, if you want to call them that, the warmongers, are desperate to get this war kicked off in the Middle East. I think they're trying to prop the banking system up. The banking system's on the verge of collapse. I've now had 2 banks write to me, either asking me to deposit more money in and offering me a small amount of interest as a bribe, or another bank trying to change the terms and conditions so that I have to pay a monthly fee, because all the banks are bankrupt. Two Italian banks went down over the weekend, and they're going to end up having bail-ins, not bail-outs. That means that their depositors, unsecured depositors, will have their money in their pension schemes and that's stolen to prop the bank up. So the financial system is on its last legs, and they're trying to refinance it. And, what better way to refinance it than spend a few $1 billion worth of taxpayers' money on weapons? Because that stimulates the military-industrial complex, which eventually filters back into the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. But I think it's too late for that. But they're desperate. I mean, it's got to happen anyway. The Americans are going to keep prodding, and the Russians are just going to lose the plot and just say, screw this, we're not being pushed around by you anymore. I think, judging by the warning this morning, that ISIS will mount another chemical attack, probably on Damascus. A big one, maybe wiping out thousands. The deep state in the US will blame Assad, and then they'll bomb the shit out of Damascus and destroy it, basically, to try and get rid of Assad. When they do that, the Russians aren't going to put up with that. The Russians are going to lose it, and they're going to push back, and that's where it gets really scary. So you've got this out of control set of morons in the US, because at the weekend you also had Israel firing shells into Syria. Last week the Americans shot down a Syrian jet because it was bombing ISIS targets, but the Americans were fairly close. That was their excuse for shooting it down anyway. But then the Russians sent a message back, and they fired a load of cruise missiles that destroyed those same ISIS positions. Whether there was American casualties, who knows? But that's probably what's prompted this response now. Because, let's face it, it's exactly what the Americans do. the Russians have been invited into Syria, irrespective of what you think of the Syrian regime. It is a sovereign, elected government, and the Russians were invited in, and the Americans weren't. So what they're doing there, they're protecting the interests of the bank, of the Federal Reserve, and the banking cabal, and they're going to drag us into a war with the Russians. The banking cabal. The only way it can let's face it, they financed both sides in the Second World War. They financed both sides in the Vietnam War. Every war back, at least to the Boer War, and even the Peninsular Wars of 1812, as far as I can ascertain. So they've been making money from death for well over 200 years, probably a lot longer than that. So they're not going to stop now. They're all sociopaths, and all they care about is money. They don't, because they're never going to be on the receiving end of it, are they? Well, that's what they think, anyway. But when they meet their maker, they're going to have to pay. They'll find themselves in the eternal pit of damnation. Although that's not for me to judge. I'm just speculating. But they'll deserve it too. So I think it's quite obvious now that we are living in the end times of Revelations, and it's time for us all to, if you're not religious, I think you need to reevaluate. I think you need to start. And I know, because I've spent a lot of time looking at this, and there's hundreds of different translations of the Bible, and they've all been changed to suit, including the King James Bible. Everybody shouts about the King James Bible and how good it is, but hang on a minute, James was a Catholic, so he's changed the words, with a Catholic bent on them, and the Catholic Church is about as religious as my sandal. So there's an excellent translation which is translated from the original Greek by Christopher Sparks, and it's called the Ionian Books, and it's actually in the original. You see the original translation of the whole section of the Bible, the whole New Testament, and it's quite fascinating, the differences. But Hebrew was originally translated into Greek, and from Greek into other languages, and so this is about as close as you're going to get to the original books, I think, anyway. So it might be worth you getting a copy of that, or borrowing it from the local library if they've got a copy. It's a bit of an eye-opener, and we are living through the end times, so just have a think about that. Don't, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm scared and excited at the same time. Because if the Americans start this war, which they're determined to do, it's not all Americans. It's not American people aren't bad. Well, most of them, the same as everywhere else. There are good and bad people in every nation on the earth. But there's a battle going on in the US. Trump is what they call a useful idiot. He hasn't really got any control. He's out of his depth completely. And there's two lots of people in the US government. There's the neocons, who want to just keep the military-industrial banking complex going, and then there's excuse me, and then there's the the people who believe in the Constitution and believe in America as a sovereign nation, not controlled by the Bank of International Settlements and the people behind that. So we all know who's going to win. The good people are going to win in the end, but not not through their own efforts. It's going to get to the point where Jesus is going to have to step in, because we will end up destroying ourselves. It's only because we're being misled. It's not because humans are inherently bad. Though I have seen some stuff recently on YouTube that humans are inherently bad, but they're not. They're being misled. They're being controlled. So you've only got to watch the BBC and then read some real news to see how twisted it is. You know, this thing about the State Department warning Syria about this chemical attack. Basically, it's about warning you, telling you what's going to happen, because they always tell you what's going to happen. Oh, we're gonna commit some war crime, but we'll wrap it up in spin and tell you about it first, because that's the way they work. They always tell you one way or another what they're going to do. So you can bet your life. You know, this is a message to the Russians. It's not a message to Syria. Of course it's not. So the Russians will be taking it seriously, and they'll be gearing up, sending extra weapons and that to the region, if they haven't done it already. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And that collision with the USS Fitzgerald in the South China Sea, where that freighter, I don't know if you can see the actual path that the freighter took. It was going to T-bone it, and then it turned away. Obviously the captain, he was warned off obviously by the frigate, or will destroy whatever it was, because it turned and moved out round the Fitzgerald, round the back of it, and then it went on a few more nautical miles, and then did a complete 180, come back and T-boned it again. So it was obviously they were warned off. They sent a radio message to their masters. The masters told them to ram it. So that's what they did. So that's a message from the Chinese. You know, if they'd have done that with a warship, Americans would have kicked off. So they used a civilian container ship. If it had T-boned it completely, it would have probably sunk the Fitzgerald, because those containers, that was 29,000 tons that ship weighed, and it would have just pushed it out of the way. Could have even rolled it. So I think the captain didn't do a very good job, if that was his intention to sink it. But with AIS and all this stuff now, although you'd think that they'd have switched their AIS off if they were going to do something like that, but anyway, I'm going to go now. Have a great day, and don't forget to subscribe. Cheers.